A stagecoach rolls into a town that has been waiting for her, not with joy, with hunger. She steps down alone, 9 days of dust on the hem of a navy dress that was meant to be a wedding gown. She looks for a face in the crowd, a man, a promise, a name she has carried across 2,000 miles of prairie in a bundle of letters tied with blue ribbon. She does not find him. She finds eyes, dozens of them, a woman with a broom who will not stop sweeping, a minister clutching his Bible like a shield, 2 boys hoisted onto shoulders for a better view of whatever is about to happen to her. Nobody speaks. Then a door opens behind her, boots on wood, the measured stride of a man who knows a whole town will wait on him. He is smiling, and somewhere north of this square on a mountain nobody in this town dares climb. 3 men have not yet heard her name. She had crossed 2,000 miles to marry a man. She would learn before the sun set that he had been dead for 2 weeks, and that the town meant to sell her for his debts. Her name was Serafina Vance. She was 21 years old. She had $6.42 in a purse tucked inside her bodice, a trunk of dresses that were not fine enough to sell, and a bundle of letters from a man she was never going to meet. This is her story. The stagecoach rolled to a stop just before noon. Dust rose up around the wheels like it had been waiting there for her, patient and hungry. Sarah pressed her gloved hand to the little window and looked out at the town that was supposed to be her home, Silver Hollow, Colorado. The letters had made it sound so different. She had read those letters until the paper thinned at the folds. Read them by candlelight in the Boston boarding house. Read them on the long train ride west. Read them again and again until the words felt like a hymn she could sing without looking. He had written about the pines, about a small white church, about a garden he was building for her behind the house. She had imagined green. Now she saw brown. Brown boards, brown mud, brown faces peering out from under brown hats. The sky was blue, sure, big and blue and open, but the town itself looked like something the wind had chewed on for years and then spat back out. The driver climbed down. He did not offer her a hand. End of the line, miss. Thank you. Sarah opened the door herself. Her boot touched the wooden step, then the ground, and she felt the dust settle onto the hem of her navy dress before she had even drawn a breath. She had traveled 9 days in that dress. She had promised herself she would arrive looking like a bride, not a beggar. The dress did not care about her promises. She looked around, waited, because Thaddeus was supposed to be here. He had written the date on the letter, underlined it twice. Sarah reached into her small reticule and touched the folded paper the way another woman might touch a rosary. 12th of October, Silver Hollow. He would be there. He had promised, only he wasn't. Nobody was. Well, that wasn't true. There were people. There were people everywhere, in fact, standing in the doorways of the Mercantile, leaning against the porch posts of the saloon, a woman with a broom sweeping the same spot over and over watching, a man with a wheelbarrow stopped dead in the road watching, 2 boys behind a rain barrel watching, all of them watching her, nobody speaking. Sarah swallowed. She lifted her chin, because that was what her mother would have done, her mother who had died when Sarah was 7, but whose posture Sarah still remembered like a scripture, chin up, shoulders back, hands folded in front of the belly. That was how a lady stood even when the world had gone wrong around her. "Excuse me," Sarah said. Her voice came out clearer than she felt. I'm looking for Mr. Thaddeus Kell." The sweeping woman stopped sweeping. The wheelbarrow man set down his handles. Nobody answered. "Please," Sarah said. "He was to meet me. He sent for me." A door creaked open somewhere behind her. Boots on wood, the measured, deliberate stride of a man who knew that a whole town would wait on him. "Miss Vance." She turned. The man was tall, well-dressed, a black coat that fit like it had been sewn onto him, silver watch chain across the vest, a face that had once been handsome and had settled with age into something oily and pleased with itself. "Yes, Cyrus Thorne, Silver Hollow Savings and Trust. I'm afraid I have news." "News? Perhaps you'd like to come inside first." "Please tell me." Cyrus Thorne looked around at the watching town. He seemed to enjoy the audience the way a preacher does. He folded his hands together, sighed, made his face do a thing that looked from a distance like sorrow. "Mr. Kell passed 2 weeks ago." Sarah did not move. "Passed. A riding accident. His horse threw him on the north road. He broke his neck. I'm sorry to be the one to tell you." Something inside her folded in half, then in quarters, then eighths. Then she couldn't feel it folding anymore because she couldn't feel anything at all. 2 weeks. He had been dead 2 weeks, and no one had thought to send a telegram. No one had thought to spare her the train ride. No one had thought that a woman crossing a continent to marry a man might want to know before she crossed it that the man no longer existed. "I see." That was all she said. "I see." Because what else was there? Cyrus Thorne watched her face. She could feel him watching it. He was measuring her. She did not know for what. There are, however, some matters we should discuss. Matters. Mr. Kell left obligations, Miss Vance. He left what? Obligations to the bank. $400 secured against his property here and against Thorne let his eyes drop to the letter of engagement that Sarah still held in her hand, against the terms of your intended union. She stared at him. "I don't understand." "Perhaps you should come inside. I would like to understand right here." Thorne smiled, just a little, like a man watching a fly walk onto flypaper. "Very well. Mr. Kell borrowed $400 from this bank 6 months ago to furnish his home, to send for you in fact, to pay the fare of the woman he intended to marry. When a man contracts a marriage, his debts become the debts of the household, and when he dies before that marriage, Thorne spread his hands apologetic kind, a snake wearing a shepherd's coat. The household still exists in the eyes of the law and of the town. I never signed anything. You signed the engagement. That is not a banknote. It is a contract, Miss Vance, and this town takes contracts very seriously. Sarah's hand tightened on the letter until she felt the paper crack. "I have no $400. I did not think you did. Then what am I to do?" "Well," said Thorne, "that is precisely what we should discuss inside." She did not move, because if she moved, she was going to run, and she had nowhere to run to. Not one soul in this town, not one soul in this territory, not one soul this side of the Mississippi River, chin up, shoulders back, hands folded. Very well. The bank was cold. It smelled like old paper and pipe tobacco and something sharper underneath, like a spilled bottle of ink. Cyrus Thorne closed the door behind her, turned the key. She heard it click. Her breath stopped somewhere in her throat. "Mr. Thorne, please sit. Why did you lock the door?" "For your privacy, Miss Vance." except no man locks a door for a woman's privacy. She knew that. She had learned that in the orphanage the year she turned 12. She knew what a locked door meant. I would prefer it open. After we speak. He sat behind the desk. She did not sit. She stood. There are, of course, options, Thorne began. A woman in your situation. My situation. Alone, penniless, in debt. I am not in debt. The town believes you are, which for our purposes is the same thing. Sarah felt the room tilt sideways. What do you want, Mr. Thorne? I want to help you. How? There are men in this town, Miss Vance, good men, widowers, men of means, men who might see in your circumstances an opportunity to be charitable. Charitable, to pay your debt in exchange for your hand. Sarah stared at him. Because he was saying it, he was actually saying it. He was standing in his fine coat with his silver watch chain and his ledger books, and he was telling her in plain daylight that he intended to sell her like a horse, like a plow, like a bolt of cheap cloth on a shelf. No, Miss Vance, no, I will pay the debt myself. I will find work. I will scrub floors. I will take in washing. I will do whatever is required, but I will not be sold. That is not the way of things here. Then I will leave. On what coach, Miss Vance? Paid for with what money? She had no money. She had $6.42 left in the little purse tucked inside her bodice. She had a trunk of dresses that were not fine enough to sell. She had a Bible her mother had given her and a stack of letters from a dead man. $6.42 and her name. I will walk if I must. Cyrus Thorne laughed. It was not a warm sound. The auction, he said, will be at 9 tomorrow morning in the square. I encourage you to consider your options carefully overnight. The what? You will remain in the bank tonight for your safety and for the town's. You cannot. I can. This is not legal. In Silver Hollow, Miss Vance, I am legal. He rose from the desk. He crossed the room to a door she had not noticed before. A small door, a storeroom door. Please, he opened it. Please, Mr. Thorne. There is a cot. There is water. You will be quite comfortable. Please, because it was all she could say. Please, please, please. He took her elbow, not roughly, almost gently. That was the worst part. He took her elbow the way a father takes a daughter's elbow to lead her down the aisle, and he walked her into that storeroom, and he shut the door, and she heard the key turn, and then she heard nothing at all. She sat on the cot for a long time. She did not cry. She had promised herself back in Boston that she would not cry when the West was hard on her. She had promised herself she would be a woman of the frontier. She had not known the frontier would be a locked room in a bank. The window was small, high up, barred. Through it she could see a strip of sky and the top of a pine tree, and if she stood on the cot, the edge of the mercantile roof. That was all. She counted her breaths. She said the 23rd Psalm. She said it again. The light outside changed from gold to rose to gray to dark. Someone brought her a plate of beans through a slot in the door she had not noticed. She did not eat. She thought about Thaddeus. His letters had been so kind. His handwriting had been slanted and careful. He had written poems for her in the margins. Terrible poems, sweet poems. He had written in his last letter, I am not a young man, Seraphina, but I have never in my life looked forward to a morning the way I look forward to the morning you step down from that coach and now he was dead, and she was locked in a bank, and a man in a black coat was going to auction her body like she was a heifer at the county fair. She lay down on the cot. She pressed her face into the thin blanket, and then only then she cried. She cried the way a woman cries when there is no one to hear, silent, steady, her shoulders shaking under the thin blanket. She cried for her mother dead these 14 years. She cried for the boarding house matron in Boston who had cried herself quietly when Sarah had climbed onto the wagon that morning. She cried for the garden Thaddeus had promised her. She cried at the last for the woman she had believed she was going to become on the far side of the country, and for the woman she was going to have to become instead. The morning came anyway. Mornings do that. They come whether you want them to or not. She heard the town gathering before she saw it. Boots on planks, voices low, a dog barking somewhere, the metallic scrape of the auction block being dragged into the square. Sarah stood. She smoothed her dress. She washed her face in the tin basin of water. She rebraided her hair, then unbraided it, then pinned it up simply the way her mother had once shown her, because if she was going to be sold today, she was going to walk out to that square looking like a woman, not a slave, a woman, chin up, shoulders back. Cyrus Thorne opened the door at 8:30. He offered his arm. She did not take it. "After you, Miss Vance." She walked out on her own. The square was full. Every soul in Silver Hollow had come to watch. That was what struck her hardest, walking out into the morning sun, not the auction block, not the rope Cyrus's men had coiled on the ground beside it, not even Cyrus himself standing on the block with his thumbs hooked in his vest. It was the eyes, so many eyes, and not one of them meeting hers. The woman from the mercantile, the man with the wheelbarrow, the two boys behind the rain barrel now hoisted on their father's shoulders for a better view, a minister in a black coat with a Bible pressed to his chest, watching a woman about to be sold and clutching his Bible like it was a purse he was afraid of losing. Nobody said stop. Nobody said this is wrong. Nobody said a word. Sarah walked to the block. She did not stumble. She climbed the 2 wooden steps. She turned to face them, and she looked. She looked at every single face. She made them look back. Cyrus began his little speech. She did not hear it. Something in her had gone very quiet and very cold, and the quiet, cold place inside her was where she stood now looking out at the town waiting, because something had to happen. Something. God, please, something. And then at the far edge of the square, 3 horses came in from the north road. The town noticed them before Sarah did. She saw the heads turn first. She saw Cyrus's little speech falter. She saw a ripple move through the crowd the way wind moves through wheat. Then she looked. 3 riders. They did not hurry. That was the first thing she noticed. They came into the square at a walk easy, as if they had all the time in the world and none of the fear. The man in front was tallest, gray hat, gray eyes she could see even from that distance, a beard cropped close to a jaw that had been carved out of something harder than flesh. He rode like a man who had grown up on a horse and had never quite come down. The man to his right was leaner, black hair long enough to touch his collar, a scar on his chin that caught the sun. His hand rested on his thigh near his belt, and even from the block Sarah could see that his knuckles were white. The man to their left was younger, softer somehow, not soft in body. His shoulders were broad, and he sat his horse easy but soft in the eyes, brown eyes, kind, almost startled as if he had not expected to ride into town and find a woman on an auction block. They stopped at the edge of the square. They dismounted. The tall one tied his horse to the hitching post. The others followed his lead. All three of them wore heavy coats. All three of them wore skins over their shoulders, beaver fox, something darker. All three of them moved without hurrying and without slowing. The town waited. Cyrus waited. Sarah waited. The tall one walked forward. He crossed half the square. He stopped 10 paces from the block. He looked up at her. He did not look at her body. She noticed that. She had been looked at all morning by every man in the crowd, and she had felt each of those looks like a hand on her skin. This man did not do that. He looked at her face, at her eyes. He looked at her the way a doctor looks at a patient or a priest at a penitent. He looked to see if she was still there. Then he turned to Cyrus. "What's this?" Cyrus recovered his smile. It took him a moment. "A private matter, sir. Bank business. Woman on an auction block ain't private. She is in debt." "To who?" "To me." "For how much?" $400. The tall man nodded slowly. He turned to the leaner one, the one with the scar. Some silent thing passed between them. The leaner one walked back to the horses. He came back a moment later with a leather satchel over his shoulder. It looked heavy. He dropped it at Cyrus's feet. The satchel made a soft, dense thump, the sound of things that had once been alive. "Furs," the tall one said. "Beaver, marten, 2 silver fox, reckons to more than 400 at the going rate. You can take them, or you can send a man up to Denver to appraise. Either way, the debt's paid." Cyrus stared at the satchel. He did not move to open it. "I do not accept goods." "You do today." "Sir, I do not know who you are, but this is not how business is done in this town. My name is Elias Blackwood." The square went still. Somebody sucked in a breath. Sarah felt the change before she understood it. It was as if the name itself had weight, and the weight had landed on Silver Hollow's chest all at once, and the town could not draw its next breath around it. Blackwood. She did not know the name, but everyone else did. "That's Josiah's boys," someone whispered. "Off the mountain." "All 3 of 'em." Cyrus Thorne's smile slid off his face. He tried to pin it back on. He failed. "Mr. Blackwood, perhaps you and I might speak privately." "We're speaking now." "The matter is complicated." "It ain't. There is the question of the girl's future arrangements." "Her future arrangement is she gets down off that block and comes with us." Sarah's heart stopped, actually stopped. She felt it, because now she was being claimed by strangers. Now she was being taken. Now she was being moved from one man's hand to another's, and the fact that these hands looked cleaner did not necessarily mean they were. The tall one, Elias, looked up at her. He must have seen the fear on her face, because he did something then that surprised her more than anything else had that morning. He took off his hat. He held it against his chest, and he spoke to her only to her, as if the crowd was not there. "Ma'am, my brothers and me, we ain't buying you. We're paying a debt that ain't yours. You're free to go where you please when we're done here. But if you'll ride with us up the ridge tonight, you'll have a safe roof and a locked door with the key on your side of it. My word on that." She looked at him. The gray eyes did not waver. She looked at the leaner one. Cormac. That was his name, though she did not yet know it. He gave her the smallest nod, one quick nod. Then his eyes went back to Cyrus, and his hand went back to his belt. She looked at the younger one, Rook, the soft-eyed one. He gave her something like a smile, not a big smile, just a corner of one, a shy little thing like a boy meeting a girl at a church picnic. She looked at Silver Hollow. She looked at every eye that had watched her drag her trunk from the coach, every eye that had watched Cyrus Thorne lock her in his bank, every eye that had come out this morning to watch her sold. Not one of them met hers, not one. She stepped down off the block. Cyrus Thorne made a small choked sound. He reached for her arm. Cormac Blackwood moved. He moved so fast Sarah did not see it happen. One moment his hand was at his belt. The next there was a knife between him and Cyrus, resting in his palm, easy as a spoon. He did not raise it. He did not even flex his wrist. He just held it, loose, between his fingers, the way a man holds a hymnal in church. Don't. That was all he said. Cyrus Thorne pulled his hand back very slowly. Elias offered Sarah his elbow. She took it. She was shaking. She could feel herself shaking. But she took his elbow and she walked with him across the square, past the fur satchel still lying at Cyrus's feet, past the woman with the broom, past the boys on their father's shoulders, past the minister with his Bible pressed against his chest like a shield. She heard footsteps behind her. She glanced back. The sheriff was following. He was a lean man, middle-aged, tired eyes, a tin star pinned to a coat that was one size too large. Sarah had not seen him at all until now. She realized with a small, sick jolt that he had been standing at the back of the crowd the whole time. He had done nothing. Now he walked fast to catch up. He did not speak until he was close enough to be heard by only them. Mr. Blackwood. Elias did not slow. Sheriff, a word. Speak. Kell didn't fall off no horse. Elias stopped. He stopped so suddenly that Sarah almost tripped. The sheriff kept walking slower, now matching them. He did not look at Elias. He looked at the ground. I found a hole in his coat, right through the back. Powder burn small, close range. You told the town. I did not. Why? Because I have a wife and a girl of 6, and Thorne knows both their names. Elias breathed out through his nose, just once. You know who did it. Not for certain. You got a guess. A guess ain't a warrant. Elias did not answer. The sheriff reached inside his coat. He pulled out a folded square of paper. He pressed it into Elias's hand. That's what I got. Ledger page. Copied it myself from Thorne's office when he was out. If any of it's worth anything, you'll know better than me. Why us? The sheriff looked up. For the first time, he met Sarah's eyes. He held them for one heartbeat, and she saw in that heartbeat that the man was ashamed, not proud, not brave, ashamed, and that his shame was going to be the thing that saved her, because a man who is ashamed of himself will sometimes do the right thing just to buy back an hour of sleep. Because Josiah Blackwood buried my brother in '59, and I owe his boys a favor I never paid. That's all. He touched the brim of his hat. Corbin, name's Corbin, in case you need to send for me. He walked away. Elias put the paper in his coat. They rode north out of Silver Hollow with Sarah on the back of Rook's horse. She had not been asked. She had simply been lifted gentle as a lamb and set behind the youngest of the 3. Rook had said soft as a hymn, "Hold on to my coat, ma'am. Don't be shy. I don't bite. My brother's on occasion, not me." She had almost laughed. Almost. She did not, because she was too tired, and because the laugh was too close to a sob, and she did not trust which one would come out. They rode for 3 hours, up, always up. The road became a trail. The trail became a track. The track became something that was hardly there at all, a suggestion of a path pressed into the pine needles by generations of hooves. The air changed, grew thinner, cooler. The trees closed in around them until Sarah could see nothing but green. Nobody spoke. She was grateful for it, because if any of them had asked her how she was, she would have broken, and she did not want to break yet. She wanted to hold herself together a little longer, at least until she reached wherever they were taking her. Rook's coat smelled of wood smoke and cedar. She pressed her cheek against his shoulder blade. Once, when the horse lurched and he did not remark on it. She was grateful for that too. The cabin came into view just before sundown. It was bigger than she expected. 2 stories, a stone chimney, a wraparound porch, a woodshed behind, a small stable, everything built solid, no ornament, no waste. Everything looked like it had been made to last 100 years. They dismounted in the yard. Cormac took the horses to the stable. Elias took her trunk from Rook's pack horse and carried it up the porch steps like it weighed nothing. Rook offered Sarah his hand. She took it. Her legs almost gave out under her when her boots touched the ground. Rook caught her elbow, just for a moment, long enough for her to steady. "You're all right, ma'am. I'm sorry." "Nothing to be sorry for. I don't even know your names." "Rook, ma'am, and that's Elias, and the sour one leading the horses is Cormac, but he's less sour when he's fed." She laughed, a real one this time, small, cracked, but real. Rook grinned. His grin was the sun coming up. "There we go. Come inside. It's warm." The cabin was warm. That was the first thing she felt. The second was clean. It smelled of pine and beeswax and something baking, though nobody had been home. Sarah realized, after a moment, that the smell was in the wood itself. Years of hearth fires and soap and the same 3 men living the same 3 lives. There was a table, 4 chairs, a pot on the stove, a bookshelf. She stopped in the doorway. Elias saw her looking. "Rook reads." "So do I," Cormac called from outside, mock offended. "Rook reads good," Elias corrected himself. "Better. Rook reads better." Sarah stepped closer to the shelf. Her fingers hovered. Shakespeare, Dickens, a well-worn Bible, Milton, a volume of Wordsworth, a book she did not recognize in French, 2 books about horses, a small red book of Psalms. "May I?" "Any time you want, ma'am." She touched the spine of the Wordsworth. Something inside her, some knot that had been pulled tight since Boston, loosened just a little, because a man who reads Wordsworth is not the kind of man who sells a woman. She turned around. Elias was setting down her trunk beside a door at the back of the main room. He straightened. "That room's yours." "Mine." "Was our sister's, Marta. She died the winter of 71. Room's been empty since. Clean but empty. There's a lock on the inside of the door. Keys on the hook. You keep it. Nobody comes in without you saying so. Nobody." She looked at him. She could not speak. "You hungry, ma'am?" She nodded, because if she opened her mouth, she was going to cry, and she had cried enough for one day. "Rook, feed her. I'll bring in the wood." Rook stepped up to the stove. He lifted the lid on the pot. "Steam." He sniffed it. He nodded to himself. "Venison stew, ma'am. 2 days old. Better the second day than the first." That's what my mother used to say. Smart woman. She was. Sarah sat. She had not meant to. Her knees just gave up. She sat at the long table and folded her hands in her lap. and watched a stranger ladle stew into a wooden bowl for her. He set it in front of her. He set a spoon beside it. He set a mug of water beside the spoon. He did not sit. He stood a respectful distance away, arms folded loose, waiting. "Aren't you eating?" "After you, ma'am." "Why after me?" "Because Josiah taught us guests eat first." She picked up the spoon. The first bite hit her stomach, and her whole body shuddered. She had not eaten in almost 2 days. She ate. She ate slowly at first, then not slowly, and when she looked up, her bowl was empty, and Rook was smiling that shy smile again, and Elias was standing at the door with an armload of firewood, watching her, and she felt herself flush from her collar to her hairline. "I'm sorry. I ate like a wolf. Wolves are honest eaters, ma'am. Please stop calling me ma'am. What'll I call you?" "Seraphina." "That's a mouthful." "Sarah, then." "Sarah." The way Rook said it, careful, giving it the space it deserved, undid her a little. She looked down at the empty bowl. She blinked hard. She did not cry. She had promised herself. Cormac came in from the stable. He shook the dust from his coat. He hung it on a peg. He looked at Sarah. He looked at the empty bowl. "She eat all my supper, every drop." Cormac sighed, dramatically, long-suffering. "Well, guess I'll starve. Guess that's how it is now. Guess 3 men can be turned out of their own kitchen by one small blonde with a spoon." He said it deadpan. His face did not crack. Sarah laughed. Cormac's eyes flicked to her just once, and in that flick she saw that he had said it precisely because he had known it would make her laugh, and that he had needed her to laugh as much as she had needed to. He turned to the stove. He served himself. He sat across from her. He ate. The 3 brothers made small noises of eating. The fire made small noises of burning. Outside, the wind made small noises of moving through the pines. Nobody asked her what had happened. Nobody asked her what she planned to do. Nobody asked her a single hard question. They just fed her. And when supper was done, Rook heated a kettle, and Cormac fetched clean linens from a chest, and Elias built up the fire in the small back room that had been Marta's, and by the time Sarah stood in the doorway of that room, she knew, without knowing how she knew, that she was safer in this cabin than she had been in any building she had ever slept in, even the orphanage, even the boarding house, even Boston. She closed the door. She turned the key. She listened. Nobody tried the handle. Nobody came near. She heard the 3 men moving about the main room. Low voices, the clink of tin cups, the scrape of a chair, then a door closing, then footsteps outside on the porch, then a rocking chair slow and steady, and she knew without seeing that one of them was sitting up, guarding. She sat on the bed. She looked at the trunk they had carried up for her. She had not opened it since she left Boston. She had lived out of the small carpet bag she had carried on her lap in the coach. The trunk held everything she had brought west, everything she owned in the world. She dragged it toward her. She unbuckled the straps. She lifted the lid. The smell of home came out first. Lavender. The little sachets the boarding house matron had tucked between her folded dresses. Sarah closed her eyes. She breathed. Just for a moment she was in Boston again, 21 years old and full of hope, packing to become a bride. Then she opened her eyes. She lifted the top layer. 2 dresses, a shawl, a nightgown, her mother's Bible wrapped in muslin. Beneath the Bible at the very bottom of the trunk she had placed the letters. Every letter Thaddeus Kell had ever written her, tied with a blue ribbon, 27 of them, She lifted the bundle out. She pressed it against her chest. Because he was dead, because a man she had never met had been kind to her across 2,000 miles of prairie, and she was never going to hear his voice or see his face, because he had been shot in the back, and no one had told her. She untied the ribbon. She read them. Not all of them. She could not have borne all of them. She read the last one, the one that had brought her west. My dear Seraphina, I have made my preparations. The house is ready. The garden is not. But a garden is never ready. A garden is a promise, and I mean to keep mine to you. I ride to meet you at the coach on the 12th. I confess I have not slept well. I keep waking and thinking, she is coming, she is truly coming. God be thanked, God be praised. I have not deserved this happiness, Seraphina, but I intend to earn it every day of the life we will share. Yours in trust and gladness, Thaddeus. She pressed the letter to her mouth. She wept. She wept for a man she had never met, and for the garden that would never be planted, and for herself alone in a stranger's house on a mountain in a country she did not know. She wept until she could not weep any more, and then, because she had not read them yet, she opened the letter beneath, the one before the last, dated 3 weeks earlier. She read it slowly. She stopped halfway through. Her breath caught. She read the sentence again. Seraphina, I must ask a difficult thing of you, and I pray you will never have cause to act on it. But should anything befall me before you arrive, should you receive this letter and find that I have not come to meet the coach, I want you to know that there are 3 men, brothers who live on the ridge north of town. Their name is Blackwood. Ride to them. Ride to no one else. Trust no one in Silver Hollow, not the minister, not the sheriff, not any woman who offers you shelter, only the Blackwoods. Tell them that Thaddeus sent you. Tell them I said the debt is paid. They will understand, and they will keep you safe until the truth of me can be told. Sarah stared at the letter. Her hand was shaking. She read it a 3rd time, then a 4th. The truth of me can be told. The truth of me. He had known. He had known he was going to die. He had known before he had written it. He had known who to send her to. He had known. She stood. She crossed the room. She unlocked the door. She stepped out into the main room in her stockinged feet, letter in her hand, hair loose down her back, like a woman half out of a dream. The cabin was mostly dark. The fire had burned low. Cormac was asleep in a chair by the hearth, his head tipped back, his mouth open, snoring softly. Rook was curled on a bench under a blanket, one arm flung over his eyes. Elias sat at the table. He had not been sleeping. He had the sheriff's folded paper open in front of him, and a small oil lamp beside it. He looked up when she came out. He did not look surprised. Sarah, he knew. Who knew what? Thaddeus. He knew he was going to die. Elias set the paper down. She crossed the room. She laid the letter on the table between them. She turned it so he could read it. He read it. His face did not move. Then his hand did. He reached across the table and touched the top of the letter. Just the corner of the page. Just once. The way a man touches the forehead of the dead. Thaddeus. You knew him? I did. How? Elias looked up at her. His gray eyes had gone very far away. He pulled me out of a river in the winter of '68. I was a lawman then. I'd been shot. My horse had gone down through the ice with me still in the saddle. He fished me out, warmed me at his fire, rode 2 days to a doctor with me, tied across his saddle. I owed him a life. He never told me. He wouldn't have. Why? Because he was that kind of man. Sarah lowered herself into the chair across from him. He said the debt is paid. He did. What does it mean? It means, Elias's throat worked once, that he considered himself square, that he did not want me to think, when I heard he was dead, that I was still owing him, that I was free. But you came anyway. I came because I heard 3 months back that he was riding east for a bride, and I knew the sort of thing Silver Hollow does to a man alone with a woman and a piece of good land. I thought I would ride down, say hello, meet the woman he was so glad about, let him know I was still on the ridge if he ever wanted me. You came to check on him. Yes. And you were too late. Elias did not answer. He looked at her. He looked at her for a long time. When he spoke, his voice was very low so as not to wake his brothers. Sarah, whatever you're about to think, that you brought this on yourself, that if you hadn't come, he might not have been killed, I want you to listen to me. Are you listening? Yes. He was killed because a man decided to kill him. That is the whole of it. It was not you. It was not the letters. It was not the wedding. He was killed because Cyrus Thorne wanted something Thaddeus had, and Cyrus Thorne does not know how to want without taking. You are not the reason for any of this. You are only the thing that finally brought it into the open. Do you understand me? She nodded. She could not speak. Elias reached across the table. He did not touch her hand. He set his own hand flat on the wood beside hers, close enough that if she moved a finger, his was there. She moved her finger. His was there. She did not weep, not this time. She just breathed, in, out, and her breath for the first time since she had climbed down from the stagecoach felt like it belonged to her. Sleep, Elias said. I don't think I can. Try. We'll talk in the morning, all of us. What are we going to do? We are going to find out what Thaddeus had that Cyrus Thorne wanted, and then we are going to see him buried under the truth of it. She stood. She folded the letter carefully. She laid it on the table beside the sheriff's paper. She looked at the 2 pieces of paper, 2 doorways into what had been done to Thaddeus Kell. 2 doorways she was going to walk through with these 3 men beside her. She turned to go. At the door of her little room she stopped. Elias? Yes. Thank you. He did not answer. He nodded once. She stepped inside. She closed the door. She turned the key. But this time, before she lay down, she opened the door again. Just an inch, just a crack, so that she could see across the room the lamp still burning on the table. The tall man was still sitting there, reading, standing guard. She lay down. Outside, the wind moved through the pines. Somewhere down the mountain, Silver Hollow was sleeping, and Cyrus Thorne was sleeping, and the whole rotten arrangement of Silver Hollow was sleeping the sleep of the dishonest. Up on Black Ridge in a cabin that smelled of cedar and wood smoke, a young woman closed her eyes, not safely, not yet, not entirely, but safer than she had been, safer than she had ever been, and that tonight was enough. The morning came slow to Black Ridge. Sarah woke to the smell of coffee, real coffee, strong, the kind her mother had made on Sunday mornings before the diphtheria took her. Sarah lay still for a long moment and listened to the sound of a spoon stirring in a tin cup somewhere on the other side of the door. For one long, foolish second, she thought she was 7 years old again. Then she remembered. She sat up. The room was dim, gray light through a small square window, a wool blanket rough against her arms, a trunk still open at the foot of the bed, letters scattered across the quilt like fallen leaves. 27 letters from a dead man. She gathered them, slow, careful. She tied the ribbon back around them the way you tie a ribbon around a lock of a dead child's hair. Then she set them inside the trunk. Then she closed the lid. She dressed. She washed her face in the tin basin. She braided her hair plain and simple, the way a working woman braids her hair when there is a hard day coming. She opened the door. Rook looked up from the stove. Morning, morning. Coffee's ready. Thank you. Sleep, some, better than none. He poured her a cup. He set it on the table. He did not look at her too long. He did not look at her too little. He just moved around the kitchen the way a man moves around a kitchen when he does not want a nervous guest to feel like a guest. Cormac came in from the porch stamping his boots. Cold this morning? Snow. Not yet. Soon. How soon? Week. Maybe less. He hung his coat on the peg. He nodded at Sarah. Not a smile. A nod. His face was not built for smiles, but the nod was a whole conversation. Good morning. You are still here. Nobody came in the night. Drink your coffee. Elias was at the table. He had not gone to bed at all. His hair was damp. He had washed at the pump then. The lamp was out, but the sheriff's paper was still spread in front of him, and beside it folded neat Thaddeus's letter, the one that had spoken his name across 2,000 miles of prairie. Sarah sat down across from him. He slid the coffee toward her. Drink. I am. Drink more. Bossy. So I've been told. Cormac snorted from the stove. He gets it from Josiah. Old man was bossier than a nun with a ruler. Nuns don't have rulers. Mine did. You were raised by nuns. I was raised by everything you can imagine. Nuns, drunks, a widow in Kansas who thought I was her dead son. Josiah was the last one, and he stuck. Sarah almost smiled. She did not smile, not yet, but her mouth remembered how. How did he find you? She said. Cormac stirred the coffee. He didn't. I found him. I was 12. He was riding through Ellsworth on a mule with a pack of skins tall as the mule itself. I stole a pouch off the pack. He caught me by the collar, and instead of thrashing me, he set me down on a rock and asked me my name. I told him. He said, well, boy, my house up on the ridge has 3 empty rooms and 1 full one, and any child who steals as clumsy as you did needs a better line of work. Come with me and I'll teach you a good one. And you went. I went. Just like that. Just like that. He fed me. He never hit me. He kept his word. I stayed. Sarah looked at Elias. And you. I was already there when Cormac came. I'd been with Josiah 2 years. Rook came 3 years after that. Different mothers, different states, same house. Not brothers by blood, brothers all the same. He said it plain. He said it the way you say the sky is blue. And Sarah, who had never had a brother or a sister, who lived past 6 months, who had never in her life sat at a table where people belonged to each other without paperwork, felt something small and warm turn over inside her chest. Elias tapped the letter with one finger. We need to talk about this. I know. You up to it. I have to be. That's not what I asked. She looked at him. Because he was giving her a way out. He was telling her in his slow, gray-eyed way that if she needed to sit in Marta's room and cry for another day, 3 armed men on a mountain were going to let her. Except she did not need that. Or she did, and she was not going to take it. I'm up to it. Good. Rook set a plate in front of her. Biscuits, bacon, an egg from a hen Sarah had not yet met. Eat first. Yes, sir. Sir, she said sir. Elias, she said sir to me. She's polite. She's mocking me. That too. Sarah ate. She had not thought she could. She had thought grief would sit in her stomach like a stone and leave no room for food. But her body was a stubborn thing, and her body wanted the biscuit, and the biscuit was good. She ate the whole plate. Nobody said a word until she was done. Then Elias slid the letter toward her. Read it again, out loud, all of it, so my brother's here. She read it. Her voice was steady, because it had to be. She had promised herself in Boston, read like a lady, even when the ground is falling out from under you. She read the part about the debt being paid. She read the part about the 3 men on the ridge. She read the part about the truth of me can be told. When she finished, Cormac had come to the table. He was standing behind Elias's chair. He had one hand on the back of it. His knuckles were white. He knew. He knew. Somebody was going to kill him. Somebody did. Cyrus Thorne. Probably. Not probably. Cyrus Thorne. We need proof. I don't need proof. I have knuckles. Cormac. What? We need proof. Cormac breathed out. Long, slow. He walked to the window. He put both hands on the sill. He looked out at the pines. You always were the boring one. I know. Josiah's fault. I know. Sarah watched them. She did not know these men. She had known them for one meal and one night and one morning, but she was already learning to read them. Elias was the wall. Cormac was the fire, and they had spent 30 years figuring out how a wall and a fire could live in the same house without one destroying the other. Rook sat down beside her. He was the water. She understood that now. He was the thing that ran between the wall and the fire and kept them both alive. What do we know? Rook said. Elias pulled the sheriff's paper toward him. We know Kell borrowed 400 from Thorne 6 months ago. That's what Thorne says. That's what Thorne says. Right. And we know Thaddeus wrote to Sarah 3 weeks before he died, saying he had prepared the house and paid for her passage. Wrote it like a man with money in his pocket, not a man in debt. So it's a lie, or half a lie, or the whole thing is upside down. Cormac turned from the window. The ledger. Yes, I go tonight. You go tonight. Sarah looked between them. Go where? The bank? You can't just... We can. He'll have men. He'll have one man, a drunk, sleeps by the back door, snores loud enough to wake his own mother. How do you know that? Cormac finally smiled. It was not a nice smile, but it was a smile. Because I looked, yesterday, while you were on the block. I walked around behind the building, checked the windows, checked the locks, counted the men, learned the routes. You were planning to break in. I was planning to burn it down. Cormac. What? I was. He was. Rook agreed cheerfully. Elias sighed. You are not burning down the bank. Fine. You are taking the ledger, copying what matters, and putting it back. Fine. And nobody dies. Fine. And you are back here by sunup. Yes, Mother. Sarah almost laughed. Almost. Because these 3 men had been arguing this same argument in some form or another for 30 years. She could hear it in the rhythm, the way Elias set the boundary, the way Cormac scuffed at it, the way Rook watched them both and let them run the loop until it landed where it always landed. Cormac obeying, Elias satisfied, Rook grinning. She had never had a brother. She had never had a sister who lived past 6 months. She had never been in a room where 3 people loved each other enough to fight without hurting. Something in her chest ached. She looked down at her plate to hide it. Elias saw it anyway. He always saw it. She was learning that too. Sarah, yes, you have a job today. What? You are going to tell us everything you know about Thaddeus. Every letter, every promise, every word about the house, the land, the town, the neighbors, anything he ever told you, however small, even the parts you think don't matter. Why? Because he trusted you, and a man who is about to be killed does not put important things in the letters to a bank clerk. He puts them in the letters to the woman he means to marry. She stared at him. Now, she stood up. She went to her room. She came back with a bundle of 27 letters and set them on the table between them like a stack of Bibles. Cormac whistled. He wrote, Sarah said. He wrote a lot. He did. Was he handsome? Cormac, I'm asking. You are not asking. I am asking. He was 52 years old and he had one bad knee, and his letters said he had lost most of his hair. I did not care. Cormac put a hand on his heart. That is the sweetest thing I have ever heard. Please shut up. I will not. Rook, he will not. Elias, he will not. She laughed. She actually laughed, out loud, in the kitchen, on the morning after the worst day of her life. She laughed, and the sound of her own laughter startled her, and she covered her mouth with her hand, and Rook watching her laugh too. Elias did not laugh, but something at the corner of his mouth moved, which was the closest thing to a smile she had seen on him yet. They read the letters together, all morning, all afternoon. Cormac made more coffee. Rook fed the fire. Elias took notes on the back of an old envelope with a stub of pencil that had been sharpened so many times it fit in his palm like a splinter. Sarah read the letters in order. She read them out loud, which was not easy, because each one was a promise from a man who had not lived long enough to keep it. Each one was a small door into the life she had almost had. The garden, the white paint on the porch, the chestnut mare he had bought for her to ride, the books he had ordered from Denver so she would not be lonely. She read them and she cried a little, and she kept reading, because Thaddeus had put something in these letters that mattered. Elias was right. He must have, and they had to find it. They found it just before sundown. Rook was the one who noticed. He had been listening, not writing, not talking, just listening, sitting on the floor near the fire chin, on his knees, eyes closed. His face had the particular stillness of a man remembering what he heard 3 sentences ago. Sarah was reading letter number 19. The land east of the house is not much to look at, my dear, but I bought it last spring for a song. 14 acres of sagebrush and 1 dry wash. Cyrus said I was a fool. Perhaps I am, but there is talk that the Union Pacific means to run a spur through the valley in the next 2 years, and if that talk is anything more than talk, our little parcel of sagebrush may prove worth something one day. Not that we shall become rich, Seraphina, only comfortable, only safe, which I think is riches enough for anyone. Sarah paused. Rook opened his eyes. Read that again. Which part? The talk part. She read it again. Rook stood up. Elias. I heard it. The spur. I heard it. Cormac was already moving. He crossed the room. He took the letter from Sarah's hand. He read it himself. Twice. He set it down. He looked at Elias. Union Pacific's engineer was in the saloon. When? 2 weeks before Kel died. I remember. Josiah's cousin Willem told me. Willem lives in Ridgefield. Said an engineer come through, drank too much, told a story about how they were changing the route. Where to? Straight through the north end of Silver Hollow, right past Kel's 14 acres, right through them, in fact. How much? How much what? How much is that land worth if the railroad comes? Cormac did some math with his hands. 10,000, maybe more, maybe a lot more. Sarah made a small sound. She had not meant to make it. It just came out of her. $10,000. She had never seen $10,000 in her life. She was not sure she had ever seen $10,000 in one place in one form. She had seen $100 once at the boarding house when a man had come to pay a whole year's rent in cash. She had thought that was a fortune. 10,000. Elias was still looking at the letter. Kel knew. Kel knew. He bought it cheap because Cyrus told him to buy it cheap. Because Cyrus thought he was going to inherit it. Because Cyrus thought Kel had nobody. But Kel had somebody. 3 heads turned, 3 sets of eyes. Sarah, sitting at the table with her fingers still on the letter. She was Kel's somebody. The room was very quiet. Rook spoke first. Sarah, yes. Did Thaddeus ever say anything about a will? He wrote once, in one of the middle letters. He said he had made arrangements. He said if anything ever happened to him, I was to write to a lawyer in Ridgefield. Do you remember the name? Yes, you do. I do. I have the name written down. I have the address. Where? In my Bible. Show me. She went to the room. She came back with her mother's Bible. She turned to Psalm 23. Her mother had always said that if you were going to hide anything in a Bible, hide it where the Bible would fall open on its own. And every Bible in America falls open on the 23rd Psalm. Behind the psalm was a folded slip of paper. Mr. Ambrose Wetherall, attorney at law, Ridgefield, Colorado. Elias took the paper. He looked at it for a long time. He knew. He wrote the will. He must have. And Cyrus does not know that. Or Cyrus knows the will exists, but does not know where. Cormac ran his hand through his hair. So Cyrus does not want to marry her. He does not. He wants her dead. He does. Sarah felt the floor slide sideways, just a little. She had known this since yesterday morning in some corner of her mind. She had known it since the moment Cyrus locked the storeroom door. She had known that a man who had murdered his own creditor was not a man who was going to let the fiancé of that creditor go home with her trunk and her memories intact. But hearing the 3 of them say it plain in daylight was different. She was worth $10,000. Dead. She was worth $400 or nothing alive. Cyrus Thorne had planned to buy her cheap yesterday because a wife was easier to widow than a stranger was to murder. And when she had said no and the Blackwoods had ridden in, he had already been working out the second plan. She was still working out the third. She stood up. She walked to the window. She looked at the pines. Her breath came shallow, too shallow, because a woman who is worth $10,000 dead is not a woman anymore. She is a bounty. She is a headline. She is a name on a piece of paper that a man like Cyrus Thorne will pay a great deal of money to erase. She was going to be hunted. She was going to be hunted until she was dead or until Cyrus was. She pressed her forehead to the cool glass. Behind her, Elias got out of his chair. She did not hear him cross the room. She only knew he was there because his shadow fell beside hers on the window. He did not touch her. He stood beside her, close enough that if she moved, he was there. Sarah, yes, you are not going to be hunted alone. I know. Look at me. She turned. He was very close. His eyes were the gray of a lake in November, steady, deep, not warm the way Rook's eyes were warm, but not cold either. Something else, something older, something that had made up its mind a long time ago about the kind of man he was going to be and had never since had to think about it. You listen. I am. There are 3 of us. Josiah taught us all the same. We do not lose. Everybody loses. Not us. Elias. Not us. Not this. Not you. She looked at him. She looked at him for a long moment. She said nothing, because there was nothing to say to a man who had just told her she was not going to lose, except thank you, and thank you was too small. She nodded. He nodded back. He returned to the table. Cormac and Rook were already planning. Rook rides to Ridgefield. Rook rides to Ridgefield, finds Wetherall, gets the will, or a copy of the will, or an affidavit that the will exists. Right. How long? 2 days there, 2 days back, say 5 hard. 4. Take the roan, not the roan. Roan's got a stone bruise. Take the gray then, ride at dawn. Sarah turned from the window. You are going alone. I ride best alone. There are men who might. There are men who would notice 3 of us gone. Cyrus has eyes on this ridge, has since he first heard Josiah's name. If 2 of us stay, he thinks we are still here. If all 3 ride, he acts. So you draw him off. I draw him off. Cormac clapped Rook on the shoulder. Don't die. Wasn't planning to. Plans change. I won't. Promise it. I promise. Cormac held Rook's shoulder a beat longer than necessary. Then he let go. Sarah saw it. She saw the whole shape of it. 2 men who had grown up together on a mountain, who had buried each other's first pets and each other's first heartbreaks, who had never once said the word love out loud, but who used the word promise the way other people used it. She looked down at her hands so she would not weep. Rook rode out at first light. They all came out to the porch to see him off. Sarah stood behind Elias. Cormac stood on the top step. The gray horse breathed steam into the cold morning air, and Rook swung up into the saddle, easy, and he tipped his hat at Sarah, and his shy little smile broke like a sun over the porch. Back before you miss me, Sarah. I already miss you. Then hurry back. She meant to say it lightly. It did not come out lightly. Rook's smile softened. I will. He turned the gray. He touched his heels to its flanks. He was gone into the pines within a minute. Sarah watched the place where he had been until the trees stopped moving. Then she went back inside. Nobody said anything. There was nothing to say. Cormac left after dark. He kissed Elias on the top of his head as he went. Sarah almost laughed. Elias swatted at him. Get out. I love you too. Get out. I'll be back before sunup. You will. I will. Then Cormac looked at Sarah. He held her eyes for the space of one breath. Miss Vance, Mr. Blackwood, look after this old man. He's soft. I heard that, Elias said. You were meant to, Cormac said, and slipped out into the dark. The door closed. The cabin was quiet. It was Sarah and Elias, just Sarah and Elias, which was fine, she told herself, which was perfectly fine, which was not fine at all, actually, because she had spent one full day being calmed by the shape of three men in a room, and now there were only one, and now the room was suddenly very large, and now she could hear her own heart, and now she could see Elias very clearly in the lamplight, and now his shirt sleeves were rolled to the elbow, and his forearms were brown from years of sun, and the fire was making shadows on his face, and she was 21 years old, and she had never in her life been alone in a room with a man who was not a preacher or a doctor or a corpse. She sat down. She stood up. She sat down again. Elias watched all of this from the table, expressionless. Sarah, yes. You want tea? Yes. I'll make tea. He made tea. He did it quietly. He did not fill the silence with talk. He did not try to make her comfortable. He just moved around the kitchen the way a man moves around his own kitchen, and Sarah watched him do it, and slowly the largeness of the room shrank down to the ordinary size of a kitchen with two people in it. He set the tea in front of her. He sat down across from her. He did not drink his own. You are afraid of me. No, you are. I am not. You are afraid of being alone in a room with me. She flushed. That is not the same thing. It is not. It is not. I know. He did drink then. A small sip. He set the cup down. He turned it half a turn. I had a wife once. Not for long. I want you to know that. You do. I do. What happened to her? She left. Oh, because I was a sheriff, and she thought a sheriff dies young. She was right. Most of us do. She could not sleep for thinking of it. One morning she got on a coach and went back to St. Louis. She wrote me a letter. She said she loved me, but she loved sleeping more. Elias, it's all right. It was a long time ago. I quit the law after that. Came up here. Been up here since. Do you regret it? Quitting the law, losing her. He looked at his hands. I regret being the sort of man she could not stay with. Sarah did not know what to say. She had never been the sort of person people had to leave because she had never been the sort of person people had to keep. She had lived her whole life in rooms she was passing through, orphanage rooms, boarding house rooms, and now a mail-order coach that had been meant to end in a house of her own, and had ended instead in a cabin on a mountain with a man who was telling her quietly that he had once been the sort of man a wife could not stay with. I don't think you are that man now. You don't know me. No. You have known me 2 days. Yes. Then how? She thought about it. She thought about the way he had taken his hat off in the square, the way he had spoken only to her, not to the crowd, the way he had said the words, "The key stays on your side of the door," the way he had not touched her not once, not even her sleeve. She thought about the way he had looked at Thaddeus's letter and touched the corner of it like the forehead of a friend, because a man who reads Wordsworth is not the man his wife left. He looked up at her. His face did the thing at the corner of the mouth again, that small, quiet, almost smile that was not a smile. Wordsworth is not proof of much. He is proof of some things. Which things? He is proof that you know how to listen to the small, to the ordinary, to the sound of a river or a bird or a woman crying in a room. Elias was silent. He was silent for a long time. Then he said very quietly, I did hear you, last night. I know. I stood outside the door. I know. I am sorry that you have to be here. Do not be sorry. I am not. She had not meant to say it. It came out of her before she thought it. She heard it in the air a second after her mouth had made it. She stared at the tea in front of her. Elias stared at the tea in front of him. Neither of them looked up. Sarah, yes. You should go to bed. Yes. I will sit up. You slept last night. Some, not enough. Enough for me. Elias, yes. Come and sit by the fire when you want to sleep. I will lock the door if I need to, but I do not need to. She stood. She did not look at him. She went to Marta's room. She closed the door. She did not lock it. She lay on the bed and she stared at the ceiling, and she thought about Boston and the orphanage and the boarding house matron and Thaddeus Kell's last letter and the way Elias Blackwood had turned his teacup one half turn, and she thought that if she was going to be hunted by a rich man with a bank at his back, she was at least being hunted from a cabin that smelled of cedar in a house of 3 men who read Wordsworth, and that was more of a home than she had ever in her 21 years had cause to expect. She slept. She slept hard. She dreamed of gardens. Cormac came back at dawn. He was muddy. His face was scratched. His coat was torn. He set a leather-bound ledger down on the table with a thump. Well, he owes Kell. How much? 2,000. Elias stopped pouring coffee. Say that again. Cyrus Thorne owes the estate of Thaddeus Kell $2,000, signed, dated, interest at 8%. Kell financed the bank last winter when the bank was going under. Nobody in Silver Hollow knows this except Thorne, and now me, and now you, and now Sarah. Sarah had come out of the room at the sound of Cormac's voice. She had wrapped her mother's shawl around her shoulders. Her hair was down. She looked, she knew, like a woman who had slept in her clothes. She did not care. She stared at the ledger. So Kell was not the debtor. Kell was the creditor. So Cyrus killed his own creditor. He killed the man who had paper on him. Yes. And when the news of the killing got out, he was going to burn this ledger. But now we have it. Elias picked up the ledger. He turned the pages carefully, slow, reading, not skimming, reading. He nodded once, twice. He closed it. This is enough. Enough. For a judge. For a judge, if we can get to one. Ridgefield has a circuit judge. He comes through every 3 weeks. This week, in fact. Willem told me. Then we take this to Ridgefield with Wetherall's will, and we hang the son of A. Cormac. I was going to say gun. You were not. I was. You were not. Sarah laughed. It was small. It was tired. It was real. Cormac beamed at her. See that? She's back. She was never gone. She was a little bit gone. I was a little bit gone. You're back. I am. Elias set the ledger on top of the sheriff's paper, on top of Thaddeus's letter. 3 pieces of paper, 3 doorways into what had been done, together enough to hang a man, together enough to save a woman, together enough to close the door on Silver Hollow's long, quiet nightmare. He looked up at Cormac. Rest. I'm fine. Rest. You've been up all night. I'll ride down and check the road for Rook. He's not due back for 2 days, which is why I checked the road today. If anyone is moving on this mountain, I want to see them before they see us. Fine. Fine. Cormac fell asleep in his chair before he had finished his coffee. Elias stood. He put on his coat. Sarah stood too. I want to come. Sarah, I want to. It is cold. I have a shawl. It is a mountain. I have legs. Sarah, please. He looked at her. He looked at her for a long moment. He nodded. They rode down the trail together on the roan and the black. Elias led, Sarah behind. The pines cracked with cold. Small snowflakes came down through the branches and settled on the roan's ears and did not melt. Sarah pulled the shawl tighter. Elias did not speak. Sarah did not speak. They rode for an hour. 2. The trail turned. The valley opened below them. Silver Hollow lay like a scar in the middle of the flat brown ground, small and gray, the smoke of its chimneys rising thin and unhurried into the morning. Elias reined in. He sat looking down at it. Sarah sat looking with him. Elias? Yes. Whatever happens. Yes. I need to say this. Say it. Thank you. He did not answer right away. He looked down at Silver Hollow. He looked at the little scar of a town where a woman had been dragged onto an auction block 2 days ago and where 3 brothers had walked in and walked her out. Sarah, yes, when we are done with this, you will not owe us anything. I know. You can go where you please. I know. You can go back east. You can go west. You can go anywhere. You will have the money from the land. I know. I want you to know that. I know that. Good. They sat quiet a while. Then Sarah said without meaning to, "What if I want to stay?" Elias did not turn. He kept looking at the town below. "Then you stay. On the ridge. On the ridge. With 3 men. With 3 men who read Wordsworth." She laughed. He laughed. He actually laughed. A small one, a short one, but a laugh. She had made him laugh. Then he lifted his head. He was not looking at the town anymore. He was looking north. Sarah followed his eyes. A horse was coming up the trail, fast, alone, no rider. Sarah's chest went cold. Elias, I see it. I see it, Sarah. He was already off his horse. He was already running down the trail. The horse came up over the last rise and saw them and slowed its sides, heaving its bridle dark with something that was not sweat. The gray horse, Rook's horse. The saddle was empty. The stirrups swung loose. The pommel was smeared dark red, and there was more red down the shoulder and more red across the saddle skirt, and the horse was blowing hard, the way a horse blows when it has been ridden alone for a long time in fear. Sarah got off the roan. Her knees held, barely. Elias caught the gray's bridle. He steadied the horse. He ran his hand down the animal's neck. He murmured something low and even to it that she could not hear. Then he saw the paper. It was pinned to the saddle skirt by a knife, a folding knife she did not recognize. Elias pulled the knife out. He unfolded the paper. He read it. His face did not move, but his hand closed on the paper until his knuckles went white. Sarah stepped closer. Elias. Sarah, show me. Sarah, show me. He gave her the paper. Bring the woman to the square at dawn, or the boy loses his head. Come alone. Come unarmed. Come with the ledger. C.T. Sarah read it twice, 3 times. Her hand was shaking. She looked at the gray horse. She looked at the blood on the pommel. She looked at Elias. He's alive. He's alive. You don't know that. He's alive, Sarah. How do you know? Because Cyrus needs him alive. Dead boy is no leverage. He wants leverage. So Rook is alive. You are sure. I am sure. She wanted to believe him. She looked at the blood. She looked at the blood, and she was 7 years old again, and there had been blood on her mother's apron the morning her mother had died, and the color was the same. It was always the same. Blood is always the same. Elias. Yes, I am going down to that square. No, I am. No, Elias, I am. He looked at her. His gray eyes were doing something she had not seen them do before. They were burning, quietly, but burning. Sarah, he is your brother. He is your brother because I got on a stagecoach in Boston and rode 9 days to be sold in a square. He is bleeding because of me. I am going down there. He is bleeding because of Cyrus Thorne, not you. Both. No, Elias. He stopped her with a hand on her arm. The first time he had touched her. His fingers were warm through the sleeve of her dress. His grip was firm and gentle both. It was the grip of a man who had steadied 100 frightened horses in his life and who was steadying a frightened woman now the same way, with the same patience, with the same certainty that fear could be answered but not fought. Listen, I am. You are not going alone. I know. You are not going alone tonight or ever. Not while I am alive. Do you hear me? Not while I am alive. She looked at his hand on her arm. She looked at his face. She nodded. He did not let go. She did not want him to. Behind them the gray horse blew softly and pressed its bloody muzzle against Sarah's shoulder, as if the horse, too, was asking her to please, please come and bring its rider home. The wind moved through the pines. Down in the valley, Silver Hollow was making breakfast. Up on the ridge in the cold morning light, a young woman and a mountain man stood with their hands together on the reins of a bloodied horse, and neither of them let go. They rode back up the ridge with the gray horse walking behind them on a lead rope. Nobody spoke. The wind had picked up. The snow that had been drifting down light and lazy was coming harder now, small, hard flakes that stung Sarah's cheeks and settled into the folds of her shawl. She did not feel them. She could not feel anything except the letter in her pocket, 4 sentences on a single sheet, written in a hand she did not know but could imagine. Cyrus Thorne in his fine coat at his fine desk, writing 4 sentences with the same pen he had used to sign the loan he had made to a dead man. Bring the woman. Come alone. Come unarmed. Come with the ledger. Cormac was on the porch when they came into the yard. He had heard them coming a long way off. He was already down the steps before Elias had reined in. He saw the gray horse. He saw the empty saddle. He saw the blood. He did not shout. He did not run. He walked to the horse. He put his hand on its neck. He looked at the blood on the pommel. He looked at the blood on the shoulder. He looked up at his brother. Elias handed him the note. Cormac read it once. He read it twice. Then he crumpled it in his fist, and he threw it into the dirt, and he walked past all of them into the cabin without a word. The door slammed. The window rattled. Something inside broke china, maybe one clean sound, then silence. Elias got down off his horse. He picked up the note. He smoothed it. He folded it. He put it in his coat. He looked at Sarah. Give him a minute. I want to give him a minute. He needs it. So do I. They stood in the yard with the snow coming down around them. Sarah looked at the gray horse. She had ridden that horse. She had pressed her cheek to Rook's shoulder from that saddle. She had felt her own arms around Rook's waist and the warm wood smoke smell of his coat and the way his back had stayed straight and steady while she wept into it. That horse had come home alone. She put her hand on its nose. You did good, she said. You did good coming to us. The horse pushed its face against her. She felt her chest crack, but she did not cry, because if she cried now, she would not stop, and if she did not stop, she would not go down to Silver Hollow at dawn. And she was going down. There was no other conversation to have. They stayed on the porch until the sound inside the cabin went quiet. Then Elias opened the door. Sarah followed. Cormac was sitting on the floor by the fire, just sitting, his back against the stones, his knees drawn up, his forearms across his knees, his head down. He did not look up when they came in. Cormac, don't. We need to. Don't, Elias. I mean it. Don't. Elias sat down on the floor beside him. He did not touch him. He did not say anything. He just sat. Sarah stood in the doorway. She did not know what to do. Then Cormac spoke. His voice was rough, ruined. I promised him. I know. I stood in that yard. I put my hand on his shoulder. I said, don't die. I know. I said, promise it. I know. He promised. He did. Then he rode off, and I let him. You had to. I let him. Cormac. I let him go alone. I let my little brother ride off alone with a bag of papers and a pistol and no cover and no plan for what if. I let him. You did what we all agreed. Doesn't matter. It matters. Doesn't. Elias breathed out slow through his nose. He is alive. You don't know that. He is alive because Cyrus Thorne wants Sarah, and Cyrus Thorne knows that a dead Blackwood brings a dead Blackwood back. He wants leverage. He has leverage as long as Rook breathes, so Rook breathes. Until dawn, until we go down and get him. Cormac finally looked up. His eyes were red. He looked at Elias. He looked at Sarah in the doorway. He looked at the ledger still lying on the table where he had thrown it that morning. You have a plan. I have half of one. Tell me the half. We do not go alone. We do not go unarmed. And we do not go with the ledger. That's the whole plan. That's the whole plan. Cormac laughed. It was not a nice sound, but it was a laugh. Josiah would be proud. Josiah would be furious. Same thing with him. Same thing. Sarah stepped forward. Elias? Yes. There is more to the plan. There is. Say it. He looked at her. He looked at her for a long moment. Sarah, I don't. Say it. Sarah, Elias, say it. He looked at his hands, then at Cormac, then at her. You come to the square. I know. You come to the square and you buy us time. I know. You stand out there in front of him and you talk. You make him talk back. You keep him talking until we can get to Rook. You are the bait. You are the noise. You are the thing he cannot look away from, and we are the knife in the dark. Sarah did not move. She did not blink. She had known this was what he was going to say. She had known it the moment she had read the note on the trail. She had known that a plan that saved Rook was a plan that put her, and only her, in that square in front of Cyrus Thorne again. She had known. She had known. She still could not breathe for a moment. Cormac was on his feet. No. Cormac. No, Elias. No. That is not a plan. That is a coffin. She stands in that square. Cyrus puts a bullet in her before we make it 2 steps. He will not. He will. He will not. Not until he has the ledger. Not until he knows where the will is. Not until he can undo what she has done to him just by being alive. He needs her talking, not dead. If he wanted her dead, he would not have written the note. He wants her dead in the end. In the end, not at the start. So we bet her life on the difference between the start and the end. We bet all our lives, Cormac. That has always been the bet. Cormac turned away. He put both hands on the mantelpiece. His shoulders shook, once, twice, then went still. He did not turn back around. Sarah, yes, you do not have to do this. I know. You could ride out tonight, east. Cormac would take you. Elias would let us. Cyrus would come after us. You would live. Rook would die. Sarah, Rook would die. Sarah, you could live. I would not. He turned, slow. He looked at her. He looked at her the way a man looks at something he did not know was in the room until it spoke. Say that again. I would not live. Not really. Not with Rook dead on my account. Not with the three of you gone from me because I chose a train ticket over a brother. I would breathe. I would eat. I would put on a hat and go to church on Sundays. But I would not live. Sarah, I would not. Cormac's face broke, just for a moment, just at the edges, just a small tremor in the mouth that she saw before he mastered it. He nodded, once, that was all. He turned back to the mantel. He said without looking at anyone, then we do it, and we do it right, and we bring the boy home. They planned all afternoon. The snow got worse. The light got shorter. Elias built up the fire. Cormac sharpened everything in the house that could be sharpened. He sharpened his own knife. He sharpened Elias's knife. He sharpened Rook's spare knife from the pack on his saddle. He sharpened at one point the paring knife from the kitchen drawer. Sarah watched him. He looked up, caught her watching. Nervous habit. I can see that. Josiah used to sharpen pencils, him being a reader, me being what I am. I sharpen knives. I understand. You don't. I do. She sat down at the table with a small pot of ink and the last clean sheet of paper in the house. She began to write. She wrote a letter. She wrote it in her steadiest hand. She addressed it to Mr. Ambrose Wetherall, attorney at law, Ridgefield, Colorado. She wrote, Dear Mr. Wetherall, should this letter reach you before you hear from me, otherwise you are to know that my name is Seraphina Vance, and I am the woman for whom Thaddeus Kell prepared his affairs before his death. Enclosed, you will find a page copied from the ledger of Cyrus Thorne of the Silver Hollow Savings and Trust, showing that Mr. Thorne is indebted to the estate of Mr. Kell in the sum of $2,000. We have reason to believe Mr. Thorne is responsible for the death of Mr. Kell and for the abduction this day of Mr. Rook Blackwood of Black Ridge. I ask that you deliver this letter and the enclosed copy at once to the circuit judge now sitting in Ridgefield and to any federal marshal within your reach, that they may ride to Silver Hollow with all haste. Time is against us. If we are not living when they arrive, may this letter speak the truth we could not. Yours in trust and duty, Seraphina Vance. She read it over. She copied out the page from the ledger onto a second sheet. Cormac watched her do it. He watched her steady hand. He watched her copy the numbers exactly. He watched her write the account names in the same slant Cyrus had used, as if she meant to prove the paper's origin by the very shape of the letters. He whistled softly. You have a hand. The matron at the orphanage taught us. She said a lady's hand could open doors, a lady's face could not. Smart matron. She was mean as a snake, and she smelled like old lard, and I loved her. Sounds about right. Sarah folded the letter around the ledger page. She sealed it with a bit of candle wax. She addressed the outside. She handed it to Elias. You send this tonight, not at first light. Tonight, Cyrus is watching the roads at dawn. He is not watching them now. Send it now. Elias turned the letter over in his hands. Sheriff Corbin. Yes, he will ride. He will ride if you tell him what is in it. Ashamed men ride when they are given a chance to be less ashamed. You have thought about this. I have thought about it all day. He looked at her. His gray eyes were very steady. Sarah. Yes. You are not the woman who got off the coach. I am. You are not. I am. I am just also this now. Both at once. He was quiet. Then he put the letter inside his coat right against his chest. He nodded once. I will ride down to Corbin now. He will be at the jail. He sleeps there when his wife is angry with him, which is often. He can be in the saddle within the hour. The marshal in Ridgefield keeps a fast bay. If Corbin rides all night, the marshal can be here by noon tomorrow. Then ride. I will be back before 4. I know. He touched her cheek then, just the back of his fingers, just once, and he was gone. Boots on the porch, then hooves in the snow, then silence. They tried to sleep. Sarah did not sleep. She lay in Marta's bed, and she looked at the ceiling, and she counted her breaths, and she said the 23rd Psalm, and she thought about Rook tied somewhere, about Rook with blood on his temple, about Rook in a cellar or a storeroom alone and cold and knowing his brothers were coming and knowing they might not come in time. She thought about the shy smile. She thought about the way he had said, I don't bite my brothers on occasion, not me. She sat up. She swung her legs over the side of the bed. She could not lie there anymore. She could not. She pulled the shawl around her shoulders. She opened the door. Elias was on the floor by the fire. He had returned. She had not heard him come in. He was not sleeping. Sitting up back against the wall, rifle across his knees, the lamp beside him turned low. He looked up when she opened the door. He did not seem surprised. Sarah, you are back. I am back. Corbin is riding. He is halfway to Ridgefield by now. Good. Yes. You should sleep. I know. But you cannot. I cannot. Come sit. She sat, not right next to him, not far. On the hearthstones, her feet folded under her, her shawl tight. The fire popped. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Then Elias said so quietly, she almost did not hear, when Marta died. Yes, she was 14. It was a fever. She caught it in town, from the school teacher, we think. Cormac carried her home from the schoolhouse on his back, 2 miles, in the snow. She weighed almost nothing by then, and when she died 3 days later, Cormac did not sleep for a week. Elias. I sat with him, just like this. I did not touch him. I did not talk. I just sat. And on the 7th day he cried. First time I ever saw him. Then he slept. Why are you telling me this? Because you look like a woman who has never had somebody sit with her before. She looked at him. She did not answer. She could not. Because he was right. Because in 21 years she had cried in her pillow, and she had cried into her mother's apron before her mother died, and she had cried in the boarding house room in Boston with the door locked from the inside, and she had never not once cried in a room with somebody sitting there who had chosen to sit there with her. Not once. She put her face in her hands. She did not sob. She was too tired to sob. She just cried, quietly, steadily, the way rain falls, small and even and long. He did not touch her. He sat. He was there. After a long time, she lifted her head. Her cheeks were wet. He handed her a handkerchief. It was clean. It was folded. He had it in his pocket, ready for her the whole time. She almost laughed at that. You knew I was going to cry. I thought you might. You are very prepared. I try. She wiped her face. She looked at him over the handkerchief. Elias. Yes. If I do not come back tomorrow, you will. If I do not, Sarah, if I do not, I want you to know one thing. What? Rook was worth it. He looked at the fire. He did not answer. Then he said very low, He is not the only one who is worth it. She did not answer him either. She could not. She just handed back the handkerchief and stood and went to the door of Marta's room and turned there and looked at him one more time, and he was looking at her, and neither of them said anything else, but she went to bed, and this time she slept. 4 in the morning came too fast. Cormac woke them. He was already dressed. He was already armed. He had the horses saddled at the porch. He had made coffee. He had rolled biscuits with bacon inside them for each of them. He handed them out like a mother handing out lunches. Eat. I can't. Eat, Sarah. I can't. You can, because you cannot faint down there, because I know your knees, because I saw your knees go on that block 2 days ago. Eat. She ate. The biscuit was warm and salty, and it tasted like the best thing she had ever put in her mouth. Cormac watched her eat every bite. Then he nodded satisfied. Good. Elias was checking the guns. He checked his rifle. He checked his revolver. He checked Cormac's revolver. He checked the spare rifle they had left on Rook's saddle before Rook had ridden out, and which Rook apparently had thought better of and had left behind. He checked ammunition. He checked the small knife he wore at his belt. He handed Sarah a small pistol. She looked at it. Elias, you take it. I do not know how. You point it. You do not think. You do not aim. You point it at the middle of a man and you pull the trigger. It has 2 shots. 2. Do you hear me? 2. You do not raise it unless you mean to use it. Once it is up, you use it. Elias, Sarah, take it. She took it. It was cold. It was heavier than she expected. She held it in both hands, and she looked at it, and she thought about the fact that a week ago she had never touched a gun in her life. A week ago she had been in Boston packing lavender sachets between folded dresses. A week ago she had believed the world was mostly good. She was going to point this thing at a man. She was going to shoot it, maybe. She did not know who she was anymore. She was still trying to decide if that was a bad thing. Elias showed her how to hold it. He showed her the small catch. He showed her how the hammer worked. He made her do it once, twice, 3 times on the empty gun until her hands stopped shaking. He nodded. Put it in the pocket, deep, not the reticule, the pocket of the dress, under the shawl. Yes, you do not draw it unless. I know, Sarah, I know. He looked at her. She looked at him. Cormac was standing in the doorway watching them, and he cleared his throat loud, deliberate. When you 2 lovebirds are done, there is a plan to execute. Sarah flushed to the roots of her hair. Elias, to her wonder, flushed too. Cormac cackled. That's the first time I have ever seen your ears do that, Elias. Get on your horse. Yes, mother. They rode down the ridge in the snow. It had stopped falling, but the ground was white. The pines wore it thick on their branches. The world was very quiet. The horses' hooves made a soft, compressed sound. Nobody spoke. They came down out of the trees. The valley opened. Silver Hollow lay ahead. The snow made it look almost pretty. Almost. The little town in the little valley with its little chimneys and its little steeple and its little bank in the middle of the square. Elias stopped the horses at the edge of the trees. He turned to Sarah. You go in alone from here. I know. You ride to the square. You dismount. You walk to the center. You do not look at anything but Cyrus. You give him nothing to look at except you. I know. We go around, the back way, the old creek bed. We come up behind the bank. Corbin should have Rook's location by now. He said he would leave a mark on the fence if the boy is in the storeroom. If the mark is there, we go in through the back. If not, we adjust. Elias. Yes. What if Cyrus does not want to talk? What if he just shoots? He will want to talk, trust me. A man like Cyrus. He has been rehearsing this speech for 2 days. He will want to give it. You are sure? I am sure. Elias. Yes. Please do not die. He looked at her. He looked at her the way he had looked at her the first time in the square from 10 paces away. Steady, whole, no hurry. Then he reached out. He touched her cheek. Just the back of his fingers. Just once. Just the softest brush of knuckles on skin snow melting from his glove onto her cold face, warm where his hand had been, and colder after. Sarah. Yes. When this is over, yes. I would like to sit with you again. She could not speak. She nodded. He nodded. Cormac was already turning his horse. Elias turned his. They went east through the trees. She rode into Silver Hollow alone. The town was quiet. Too quiet. The kind of quiet that means everyone is already awake and everyone is already watching from behind curtains. The stagecoach depot was empty. The mercantile was locked. Even the dogs were silent. Sarah rode straight down the main street. The pistol was in her pocket. The letter to Wetherall was moving south with Corbin, who had ridden out some time before midnight, and who, if the roads were passable, would already be past the halfway mark to Ridgefield. She had watched Elias give him the letter with her own eyes. She had watched Corbin nod and tuck it inside his coat and mount without looking back. It was on its way. It had to be. She could not think about the ifs. She could not think about the ifs. She rode into the square. Cyrus Thorne was standing in the middle of it. He was alone. That was the first strange thing. No hired men, no sheriff, no crowd behind curtains that she could see. Just Cyrus Thorne in his fine black coat with the silver watch chain, standing in the exact spot where the auction block had been 3 days ago. The auction block was gone. The whipping post was still there. She rode to within 20 paces. She stopped. She dismounted. She walked toward him. 10 paces, then 5, then 3. She stopped. She looked at him. She said nothing. Cyrus smiled. Miss Vance. Mr. Thorne. You came. I came. You came alone. I came alone. Where is the ledger? Where is Rook? Miss Vance. Where is Rook? Give me the ledger. Show me Rook. Cyrus's smile did not falter, but something behind his eyes moved, a recalibration, a man discovering that the woman he had booked for a small, quiet performance had come with a script of her own. You are not in a position. I am in exactly the position I am in. Show me Rook. Miss Vance, this can be done pleasantly. So can showing me Rook. He studied her. He studied her the way a cat studies a bird that has not run yet. Then he raised a hand. A door opened at the side of the bank. A man came out dragging Rook by the collar of his coat. Sarah made a sound. She could not help it. It came out of her small and animal. Rook was alive. He was walking, barely. His hands were tied in front of him. There was a cloth around his head over his temple, dark with dried blood. One of his eyes was swollen closed. The other found her, and even swollen and bloodied and half-conscious, the shy smile came onto his face for one heartbeat, and it broke her. The man dragging him was Purdy. She recognized him from the auction. Purdy stopped at the edge of the square. He did not come closer. He held Rook up by the collar, the way you hold a sack of grain to show its weight. There, Cyrus said, alive, barely. Alive is alive. Let him go. After the ledger. Let him walk to me. After the ledger. Mr. Thorne, Miss Vance, you will not get the ledger until he is next to me. Cyrus tilted his head. He was considering it. She watched him consider it. She watched him weigh the options. She watched the arithmetic behind his eyes, because the thing she had learned in 2 days of watching Elias Blackwood was that a man like Cyrus Thorne does not know what to do with a woman who does not flinch. She did not flinch. She stood in the snow in a dress that had been beautiful once and was now stained with 3 days of hard travel, and her hair was loose beneath her bonnet, and her hand was in her pocket on the small pistol, and she did not flinch. Cyrus flicked his hand. Let the boy walk. Purdy pushed Rook forward. Rook stumbled. He caught himself. He straightened. He walked. He was walking away from Purdy. He was walking towards Sarah. 10 paces, 9, 8, 7. He was going to make it. He was going to make it, and then Elias and Cormac would come, and it would be over. Except Purdy had a rifle. Except she saw Purdy raising the rifle now. Except Purdy was going to shoot Rook in the back. She saw it in one long, slow second. The rifle coming up, the angle of the barrel, the line from muzzle to Rook's shoulder blades, the whole clean mathematics of murder happening in the corner of her eye, while Cyrus's mouth was still shaping some other sentence entirely. She did not think. Elias's voice was in her head. You do not think. You do not aim. You point it at the middle of a man and you pull the trigger. She pulled the pistol out of her pocket. She pointed. She fired. The gun bucked in her hand harder than she had thought a small thing could buck. She staggered. Snow went up in a puff at her feet. Her ears rang. Purdy grunted. He looked down at himself. Surprised. He put his free hand to his side. It came away red. He looked at Sarah. He looked at her the way a man looks at a mailbox that has just spoken his name. Then he pitched forward into the snow. The rifle fell. Rook turned. Sarah did not know how he did it, hands tied, half blind, half a step from collapse. But Rook turned and threw himself sideways, so that if there had been a second shot from Purdy, it would have missed. He rolled. He came up on his knees. Behind him, at the far side of the square, 3 things happened at once. Cormac came out from behind the mercantile at a run. Elias came around the corner of the bank with his rifle up, and Cyrus Thorne pulled a pistol out of his coat. He pointed it at Sarah. Drop it! Her ears were still ringing. She could not hear him. She could see his mouth moving. She kept the pistol up. Her hand was shaking. Cyrus took a step toward her. Drop it, Miss Vance, or I. You what? I will kill you. You will. I will. She did not drop it. She could not have said why. Her arm was shaking. Her legs were shaking. Her breath was coming in small, hard gasps, like she was drowning, but her arm stayed up. The pistol stayed up. The one bullet she had left stayed in the chamber, and she looked at Cyrus Thorne, and she said something she had not planned to say. "You are not going to shoot me." "I am." "You are not." "I am." "You are not, because I am worth $10,000 alive to you and nothing dead, because I am the only person on this continent who can sign over that land, because you have not yet made me sign anything, because you cannot make a dead woman sign, because if you shoot me, Mr. Thorne, you have burned the whole thing down, and you are not a man who burns things down. You are a man who takes things quietly, so you will not shoot." Cyrus's hand trembled. She saw it. She saw the whole calculation cross his face. He was working it out. He was doing the arithmetic, and the arithmetic said she was right. "Miss Vance, Mr. Thorne, you have Elias." She said it without looking away from Cyrus. Elias was already 10 paces behind him. Elias had had his rifle up the whole time. Elias said in his flat, quiet voice, "Cyrus, put it down." Cyrus did not turn. He kept looking at Sarah. "Elias Blackwood, Cyrus Thorne, you have been up in your mountain a long time. Long enough. You do not know how things work down here. I know how you work. Do you? I do. You know I have people. You had people. I have people. You had Purdy. Purdy is bleeding in the snow. The other two took a train east last night when they heard the federal marshal was riding in from Ridgefield. You have nobody left, Cyrus. Nobody but you and your pistol and a lady with better nerves than you have." Cyrus's eyes flickered. Just for a fraction of a second, he looked at Sarah. He looked at Elias behind him without turning. He looked at Cormac at the edge of the square, kneeling now beside Rook, cutting the ropes off his wrists. He looked at the town. The town, Sarah realized, had come out. Doors had opened. Curtains had been pulled back. People had walked out onto porches. The minister with his Bible, the woman with the broom, the 2 boys with their father, the blacksmith, the postmistress, the whole small, dirty, terrified town that had stood by and watched a woman on an auction block was standing now 3 days later, watching a man in a fine black coat stand alone with a pistol in his hand and no one behind him at all. Cyrus Thorne saw them see him. He saw the door had turned. He saw the arithmetic had changed. He lowered the pistol. Slowly, he set it in the snow. He raised his hands. "Elias, Cyrus, there is money. I do not want your money. There is a great deal of money. I do not want it. Every man wants it. Not this one. Get on your knees. Elias, on your knees, Cyrus, or I put you there." Cyrus knelt. The whole square exhaled. Sarah did not move. Her arm was still up. The pistol was still pointing at Cyrus Thorne's chest. She could not seem to lower it. Elias came around Cyrus. He put one boot on Cyrus's shoulder and pressed him down flat in the snow. He did it the way you press a snake down with a stick, careful without hurry. Cormac was on the other side of the square with Rook. Rook was sitting up now, head on Cormac's shoulder, Cormac holding him with both arms like a man holding water. Cormac was crying. Sarah could see it from here. His face was in Rook's hair, and his shoulders were shaking. He was not making a sound. He was just crying. She lowered the pistol. Her arm dropped like it had been cut off. She stood in the snow with the empty gun in her hand, and she started to shake. Elias saw. He crossed to her in 4 long steps. He took the pistol out of her hand. He put it in his own coat. Then he did something he had not done before. He put his arms around her, just his arms, not a full embrace, not tight, just his 2 arms around her shoulders and her forehead against his chest, and the smell of wood smoke and wool. She started to cry. She cried until she could not stand. He held her up. He did not let go. Behind them in the crowd, someone had begun to clap. Just one person, then 2, then 5, then the whole square. Silver Hollow was clapping. The federal marshal came in at noon. He had ridden all night from Ridgefield behind Sheriff Corbin's news. He was a big man with a white mustache and a bad limp from Antietam. He read the ledger. He read Thaddeus's letter. He read the copy Sarah had made and the affidavit Wetherall had already sworn out. He arrested Cyrus Thorne in the square. He arrested him for the murder of Thaddeus Kell. He arrested him for fraud, for extortion, for false imprisonment, for embezzlement, for attempted murder of Rook Blackwood, and for what he called general disgrace to the office of banker. Cyrus said nothing. He looked at Sarah as they put him in the wagon. He did not smile. He did not sneer. He looked at her the way a man looks at a puzzle he has failed to solve. She looked back at him. She did not smile either. She did not need to. They took Rook home first. Doctor came up the ridge on Cormac's horse, stitched Rook's temple, set his rib, said he would live, said he would need a week, said he was young and stupid enough to heal fast. Rook took Sarah's hand from the bed. "Sarah, I'm here. You shot Purdy." "I did. How does that feel?" "Terrible." "Good, good. Anyone who does not feel terrible about shooting a man should not have a gun. That is what Josiah used to say." She laughed. She cried, both at once. He squeezed her hand with the little strength he had. "Sarah." "Yes." "Thank you." "For what?" "For not running." "I could not have." "You could have. You did not." He fell asleep, still holding her hand. She sat with him for a long time. The land was hers. Wetherall came up to the cabin 2 weeks later with the papers all in order. Thaddeus had signed a will 3 months before he died. Every acre, every board, every hen and hog and hoe, all of it went to Miss Seraphina Vance of Boston, or, in the event of her death, to Mr. Elias Blackwood of Black Ridge, in trust for the founding of a school for orphan children. Sarah read the will 3 times. She held it to her chest. Then she went outside, and she stood on the porch, and she looked out at the pines, and she remembered Thaddeus's letter about the garden. "A garden is a promise, and I mean to keep mine to you." She wept. She wept for the garden that would never be his, and for the wedding that would never happen, and for a man she had never met who had loved her enough to write her a will 3 months before he was murdered. Elias came out on the porch. He did not say anything. He stood beside her. She did not weep alone. She did not sell the land to the railroad. She met with the Union Pacific man in Ridgefield. She was polite. She was firm. She told him she would sell a right-of-way, a strip 40 feet wide, for the exact market price of the strip, not $1 more. She would not sell the rest. The Union Pacific man was surprised. He tried to bargain. She smiled. She said, "Mr. Whitcomb, I have already been sold once. I do not intend to be sold twice. I will grant your railroad the strip it needs, or I will send it around by way of the North Pass, and my lawyers in Ridgefield will spend the next 4 years telling you exactly what my land is worth." The Union Pacific man signed the strip agreement. he paid a fair price. She used half of it to build a schoolhouse on the west edge of Silver Hollow. She used the other half to hire a teacher. The teacher was a young widow from Denver who had been about to lose her own home. Sarah paid her salary for the first 5 years. The schoolhouse opened in the spring. Sarah named it the Josiah Blackwood School. The first class was 17 children. 9 of them were orphans. 6 of them were girls. All of them learned to read by Christmas. Elias came to the ceremony. He wore a coat that was almost clean. Cormac came. He wore his good boots. Rook came. He wore the shirt Sarah had sewn for him with a small piece of ribbon from her mother's Bible around the collar. Silver Hollow came. Not all of them, but most. The minister came and he apologized to Sarah in front of the town, and he said he had been a coward, and he asked God's forgiveness aloud from the front step of the schoolhouse. Sarah did not know what to say to him. She said, "The children are what matters now." She said it because it was true. She said it because she had learned in 3 months on the mountain that most of grace is what you do next. She built a cabin on the west edge of the Kell land. She built it small, 2 rooms, a stone chimney. She built it herself mostly. Rook helped with the beams. Cormac helped with the roof. Elias helped with everything because he did not know how not to. The cabin was between Silver Hollow and Black Ridge, not on the mountain, not in the town, in between, which was she felt exactly where she was. She did not marry any of them, not that year, not because she did not want to, not because they did not ask in their own quiet ways. Rook with a small carved wooden bird set on her table one morning without a note. Cormac by teaching her without ever saying the word, teach how to load a rifle and skin a rabbit and read a track. Elias by simply endlessly being there. She did not marry because she had promised herself on the coach ride out of Boston that the next time she gave her name to a man, she would give it because she chose him, not because a matron had chosen, not because a letter had chosen, not because a town had chosen. She had never chosen anything in her life until she stepped down off that auction block. She was going to choose the next thing slow. The 3 brothers understood. They came for supper twice a week. She went up to their cabin twice a week. She spent Sundays in her own little house with the door open to the pines. In the winter of that first year, Elias built her a rocking chair. He did not tell her he was building it. He made it in the barn. He carved small pine cones into the arms. He brought it down on a sled through the snow the week before Christmas and set it on her porch and knocked on her door. She opened the door. She looked at the chair. She looked at him. She did not speak. He did not either. She sat down in the chair. He sat down on the step beside her. The snow came down soft. Cormac and Rook were coming up the road behind him with a basket of biscuits and a smoked ham and a bottle of Cormac's terrible cider. The 4 of them ate on her porch that Christmas Eve. The snow kept falling. The pines held it. The fire inside her cabin popped and settled and popped again. Somewhere far below in Silver Hollow, in a jail cell in Denver, in a courtroom that would send him to a federal prison for the rest of his days, Cyrus Thorne was learning what it felt like to be locked in a small room by a person he could not reason with. Sarah did not think about him. She thought about the pine cones on the arms of her chair. She thought about the schoolhouse full of children who could now read the names on their own grave tokens if they had to, and the letters home if they wrote them, and Wordsworth in time if they wanted to. She thought about the 3 men on her porch who had ridden into a town on a cold morning and had refused to look away. She thought about Thaddeus Kell. She thought about him last. She thought about him most gently. She thought about the garden he had promised her, and she thought that in a way she had planted it after all, not in his backyard, not the way he had imagined, but planted, growing, real. She reached down and she took Elias's hand where it rested on the step. He did not look at her. He did not startle. He closed his fingers around hers. Rook, watching from the porch railing, made a soft, satisfied sound, like a man who had been waiting 3 months for a thing to happen and had finally seen it happen. Cormac said, without looking up from his cider, "About time." Elias said mildly, "Mind your business." Cormac said, "You are my business." Rook said, "We are all our business." Sarah laughed. She laughed the way she had not laughed in Boston, or on the coach, or in the auction square, or in the bank storeroom, or in 21 years of being nobody's chosen thing. She laughed like a woman at home. The snow kept falling on the pines. The fire popped inside. 4 people sat on a small porch on the edge of a long white valley, and somewhere in the sky, an old friend, if such things are permitted, looked down and saw his garden growing and was at last at peace.